How about some bold predictions for this season, including two that would put Luther Burden among the absolute cream of the crop in college football in two very different ways? Let's talk about that and more right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and a man with this shirt and hat combo and all the helmets behind me. I think I've got every Mizzou logo covered of all time on this particular episode. So what can I say except you're welcome for that. And you know what? I've spent a couple days thinking about whether I should traditionally cover Mizzou football this season or not. I think I've come to my decision. I'll talk about that later in the program. Before we get started here, just want to say that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. And I do want to do some bold predictions here today. It just seems like that time of year to me. And here's what I mean by bold predictions. I do mean bold. Let's underline bold. This is stuff that I wouldn't bet you 50-50 on. I wouldn't take an even $5 for $5 bet on. But these are all things that I genuinely believe can happen and are much more likely to happen, I think, than the general Mizzou fan base would believe. So with all that being said, let's start off with my first bold prediction. I believe that there's a really good chance, let's just say it, I think Luther Burden is going to be a Heisman finalist this season at the downtown Hilton or whatever it is now where they have the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Just doesn't have quite the same ring to it that the downtown athletic club did for the first 65 years or so of the award's existence. But here's my thing with Luther Burden. Of course, just last season we saw Cody Schrader was a top 10 guy for the award despite having virtually no hype, I would say, in the preseason whatsoever, especially on a national level. Was anybody thinking about Cody Schrader on the Heisman radar? No, not at all. None whatsoever. Well, Luther Burden is very much on everyone's radar. And here's the deal. To me, it's not just about him as a receiver. As I've said before, if you're an everydayer, if he, to me, just runs back one punt for a touchdown in a big spot, heck, he might even win the thing. Historically, as a receiver, yes, receivers historically don't win the award very often, but it has happened. But in order to win that award as a receiver, generally you have to have a second element. Whether it's in the return game in special teams, or it was Charles Woodson who played both ways, did most of his damage on defense, but showed up enough on offense that he was able to capture that award. By the way, Devonta Smith, who's the most recent receiver who won the Heisman Trophy during the obviously unusual 2020 season, he obviously had a wild statistical campaign that few are ever going to match, and becomes even more crazy with time the more you look at it. And quite frankly, then again, so does Denario Alexander's 2009 season, by the way. When you compare it to Smith's season in the same amount of games, just only 100 fewer yards thereabouts receiving than Smith, though 9 touchdowns, that's a pretty big gap. I'll give you that. The receptions were about even, but again, Denario Alexander, that 2009 season, gets a little bit lost in history because the season itself was relatively forgettable, a bowl appearance and loss for the Tigers. But again, Alexander shows that, hey, a Missouri player obviously can have a massive statistical campaign. I don't even think Burden has to have that type of a statistical season to get to the finals. I'm not saying he's going to win. I'm just saying my bold prediction here, I think Luther Burden, considering all the national exposure and hype, especially with Missouri having a big season in 2024, those are all the types of really non-football factors, the sort of hype factors, the media factors more accurately, that I think gives Burden a huge advantage this season. And I think I'm going to boldly predict he's going to be a finalist and will show up in New York come December. Now, one other Burden prediction here, and really this is more of just a prediction and less of a bold prediction in super bold letters, that's for sure. I think Luther Burden is going to be rated 99 overall in the new College Football 2005 video game. And here's why this is a big deal. Because that's as high as you can be rated in the game. There are no 100s. So Burden, again, every young man, and well, I guess 1 out of every 1,000 is probably a woman as well. But let's be real. Every young man who plays the college football video game is going to be very much aware of Luther Burden. They'll probably play with the Tigers on occasion, mess around with all our different uniform combinations. And all that that's just another hype element that is going to very much help Burden when the time comes, in my humble opinion. By the way, Madden players, NFL players who are rated 99 overall in recent years have received a plaque, an award, a sort of token of recognition, if you will, of some sort. It'd be interesting to see if EA Sports does that for the college players as well. Definitely that would be a cool little keepsake for Luther Burden or anybody else who is rated 99 in the game. No doubt about that. But by the way, EA Sports also put out, just really quickly here, the offensive ratings, the overall offenses for teams in college football in that game. Missouri ranked 9th, so in the top 10 in the country. That seems pretty good. That seems fair, right? I could see Missouri being even better than that this season. But hey, I'll take 9th. I have no complaints there whatsoever. Colorado being 8th, though, that was kind of a stunner to me, I have to admit. For a team that last season, not only they didn't make a bowl, number one. They were under 500, maybe even last place in the Pac-12 if memory serves. But regardless, Colorado is a team that by the end of the season couldn't run the ball nor protect its quarterback. But yeah, sure, we'll put them as the 8th best offense in the country. Makes a lot of sense. I don't know. Probably need to adjust those ratings as the season goes along, in my humble opinion. But you know what? Back to the bold predictions here, specifically for our Missouri Tigers. My third bold prediction here is I believe the 2025 high school class is going to be the highest ranked one ever in the Rivals era. And I think it's going to be a top 10 class as well, at least top 12. I think. I'll say top 10 since we're going bold here, because quite honestly, I think a lot of these highly ranked guys that Missouri is in on right now, well, Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz have been closing the deal here lately. And I quoted Eli Drinkwitz on Jim Rome yesterday on a different topic, but on recruiting, I think Drinkwitz sounded really quietly confident about his chances of landing maybe some more of those highly ranked guys than maybe the national folks are thinking. So to me, a top 10 national class here is definitely in play. And I think regardless, this is going to be the highest ranked class in the Rivals.com era. And speaking of Rivals.com, since I just brought them up, well, my final bold prediction here doesn't have anything directly to do with Mizzou football, but it's going to be a big deal to a lot of you who are Missouri fans. My prediction is in the next calendar year, let's say by SEC Media Days 2025, I think that Gabe DeArmond and Power Mizzou are going to move over to on3.com. And here's why. It's quite simple. I just think this is a simple matter of following the media landscape. Sure seems to me like Rivals.com is cutting costs these days. Meanwhile, On3 is very much in expansion mode. And not only that, you look at On3's content right now. Obviously, they're trying to become, if they haven't already become, the biggest player in recruiting. Well, who's the biggest name in Missouri football recruiting information? It's obviously Power Mizzou, and it has been for 20 plus years or so. Gabe DeArmond's obviously done an excellent job of building and maintaining that brand. And if you look over at On3 right now, you go to their fan sites. Well, there's lots of them over there, like Gators Online and Dogs HQ and K-State Online and the Bengal Tiger, VolQuest, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? Missouri not included among these fan sites. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world for On3, again, an outlet that is expanding its coverage here, to swoop in and buy Power Mizzou. And by the way, they're going to have to pay Gabe for Power Mizzou. He's told us he owns that brand. It's not going to be, it's not as though Rivals owns that. So, hey, it's probably going to be a good thing for Gabe. If anybody thinks, oh no, they're buying Power Mizzou out from under him. No, if this bold prediction that I'm making here, if this actually comes to pass, I'd say this will probably be a good thing for our good buddy Gabe DeArmond. So, good for him and possibly good for us as well. I don't know. We'll see. A lot of Power Mizzou users haven't been really loving the experience with the website change that Rivals has done lately. So again, there's my bold media prediction for you. Power Mizzou to On3 in the next year or so. And since we're talking media, I got a lot of feedback about whether or not I should be covering the Tigers this season in a traditional sense. Should I put on the old journalism cap or continue to cover the Tigers as I have been, being removed from all of it and any relationship entanglements, to steal a phrase from Jada Pinkett Smith? Well, I think I've got my answer figured out for all of you, and I want to tell you about it. But first, let's talk some golf because, I've talked a lot about the PXG Black Ops driver. Well, when I went in and got fitted for it at PXG Kansas City, I was trying a couple putters as well. I just can't get out of my head. The One and Done and the Apache, both just were unbelievably solid. It felt like, hey, I had some misreads here occasionally, of course, but I seemed like I hit it at my target whenever I wanted, and that's all I really want from a putter, quite honestly. I can't decide which one I want the most, so I may just have to break down and get both of them. Obviously, PXG made me a believer, and they'll do the same for every golfer in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/LockedOnMizzou to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City, 7517 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club, and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/LockedOnMizzou to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/LockedOnMizzou. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends June 30th. Other terms and conditions may apply. See store for details. And for all you St. Louis people out there, maybe you've got a wild hair to see some baseball tonight. Well, I've got you covered with a great deal here at Gametime, which is by far the best place to take in Major League Baseball tickets and take the guesswork out of buying said tickets. Well, tonight, I got a nice deal for you. Right field bleachers, all-in price, just $8 a ticket. Actually, it'll be free if you simply use my promo code. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thanks again to everybody, especially all you everydayers out there, for all your feedback. I asked, hey, should I be covering this team? Kind of went over the media landscape here in Columbia and thought, there is an opportunity here, but there is a huge opportunity cost as well. I don't have a ton of time to devote, frankly, to covering the team full time. So here's ultimately, I think, my decision. I think I'm going to do my best to attend some off-season football practices here and maybe some basketball practices as well. Again, especially during the off-season. I think that can definitely be some value added for this program, to actually see the players with my own eyes before the season actually begins. But quite frankly, I think that might be good enough, because even the post-game press conferences sure seem pretty pointless these days. Honestly, most of the questions that I would ask end up being asked by somebody, so I don't know. Frankly, game days for me are still about family time and friend time and having a good time. Sure, I'm out there with my iPhone breaking down film, shooting the snaps as best as I can and all that good stuff. But on actual game days, call me crazy, I still like to actually take it in as a fan and not as an actual journalist. And especially the during the week press conferences, meeting with Drinkwitz or the selected players. No offense to said players or anything like that, but just those types of moments that aren't, an actual one-on-one or anything like that. Frankly, I'd be much more interested in having Brady Cook or Luther Burden in a one-on-one interview on this podcast than I would, just firing questions at them from a crowd of reporters while they stand in front of a lectern. That's just really not the most natural conversational tact that I like to take, quite honestly. And when it comes to SEC media days, well, it is a little tempting to go down there since there's a direct flight from Columbia to Dallas, but just taking a couple 3 days away from my family for something that's going to end up basically being a schmoozing opportunity, I don't know how much value there really is there, to be honest with you. So again, I think what I've come down to here is I think I need to get on making some media requests for practices in July and, August, I suppose. Basketball practices are occasionally happening here too. If I can get in and see any of that, I think there's real value to be had there. But all of just your sort of standard press conference, meet with Eli and the players kind of thing, where they stand in front of a microphone and a lectern and just, take questions from the crowd. To me, that's sort of old school media stuff that is very, very controlled now by Mizzou, and just not something I'm particularly interested in, and not something I think is really worth my time. So that's where I've come down on, and quite honestly, most of the feedback I got was, hey, keep doing what you're doing. So I think I'm going to split the difference, keep doing what I'm doing, and maybe go see a few practices as well. And a couple days ago, 6-time national champion Karissa Schweizer, easy for me to say, qualified for the Olympics for the second time. She finished third place in the 5,000 meters. So she'll be heading to Paris in July. Congratulations to her, obviously. And to me, while obviously making it to the Olympics once is impressive enough, making it twice is just a huge, huge deal in my humble opinion. Now, obviously, I'm the football and basketball guy. Distance running is not my forte. But I do understand competition and being a competitor and just how long 4 years can be. I mean, my goodness, think about June of 2020 and what all of us were doing, and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. And especially to do it in such a singular pursuit like running. Something that, don't get me wrong, I'm sure she has running partners and friends that she goes out and runs with, people that she trains with and all that good stuff. But basically running, it's all on you, 100%. Nobody's going to force you to get out of bed. Nobody's going to force you to get better. You don't have any teammates that can pass you the ball. Like, oh, all of a sudden I have this superstar who's taking all this attention off me and I have wide open corner threes. Hey, did I get better or did my 3-point percentages get better? That's not something that happens in running. It is 100% on you. So for a lady who has spent so much of her life in this sport, this brutal sport that's physically taxing beyond belief, for her to hang in there for that amount of time to qualify once again, I just couldn't be more impressed with Karissa Schweizer as a competitor. So congratulations to a true daughter, no question about that. Now, shifting back to football, I wouldn't say Brent Venables' time with the Oklahoma Sooners has blown anybody's socks off just yet, but despite this fact, he just got a pretty massive contract extension from Oklahoma, and this is just good context, frankly, for Eli Drinkwitz's most recent extension and where we are in college football right now. So let's talk about that here in just a second. First, though, let's talk about a FanDuel, because I love sports, and frankly, I love them so much I never want them to stop. But this time of year, we frankly don't get as much on the calendar as we'd like, but FanDuel keeps me in the mood for sports and keeps that action happening whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. While 2023 was obviously a success in every way for Missouri last season, well, the cynic out there might be saying, well, gee, Eli Drinkwitz has one winning season, and suddenly that means he's worth $9 million a year. Really? Yet another extension? Certainly, if you're a Missouri basketball fan, you could be saying, boy, we may have jumped the gun a little bit on that Dennis Gates contract extension, huh? Well, let me give you some context here, because for right or for wrong, whether that imaginary cynic, that straw cynic that I just brought up just now, whether that person is correct or not, that is the cost of doing business in big-time college athletics these days. For example, Brent Venables, yes, our beloved Oklahoma Sooners. Hey, Sooner fans, how are you? I know I'm your favorite person, but Brent Venables just got an extension, and quite honestly, has he knocked anybody's socks off yet at Oklahoma? He's been decent. Hey, 6-10 overall. You could say, well, he's done better than Eli Drinkwitz did in his first couple of seasons. Hey, fair enough. I can't really argue with that. And certainly beating Texas last year, a really good Texas team that made the Final Four in the Red River Shootout last year, goes a long way. Although a 49-0 loss in that game in 2022 raises some eyebrows as well. The point is, there was not a huge market of people out there trying to pry Brent Venables away from Oklahoma, in particular considering that he has 4 years left on his previous contract, with nearly $30 million guaranteed, by the way, fully guaranteed on that deal. So it's not as though Oklahoma they needed to show anybody necessarily that, oh, we're behind Brent Venables. Although, you know what? You look at the Oklahoma schedule, maybe they did, starting with Auburn, Tennessee, and Texas out of the gate. You never know. That could be 0-3 for the Sooners, your first year in the SEC. Perhaps Joe Castiglione and company, the former Missouri athletic director, going all the way back to the 1990s now. Maybe the OU AD just wanted to show some solidarity there and just say, heck, we got all this money burning a hole in our pocket. Let's just give it to the coach, just as a two thumbs up. The old, what am I trying to say here? The job security 2 thumbs up. Why is my head spinning here? Regardless, the point is, I think Oklahoma just wanted to have a show of force there and say, hey, good for us. We've got our coach, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if any of that makes any sense. If you're an accountant, you're probably pulling your hair out right now about all of this stuff. You're probably going, why can't we just put this money elsewhere? Put it in the baseball program or something like that. But the bottom line is, right now, right, wrong, or indifferent, all of the resources are being poured into college football, and a lot of that money, as usual, going straight to the head coach. Oh, and by the way, I thought of the phrase that was making my head spin, the vote of confidence. That's what I was trying to come up with there in vain. The dreaded and often a sign of serious problems, the vote of confidence. So I don't know. That was the thing. It's if Oklahoma is trying to make the public and their fan base more confident with a contract extension, I'm not sure that that's how that works. From my own experience as a Missouri fan, if anything, if a fan base is feeling angst about a coach in any way whatsoever, a contract extension, if it feels unnecessary and out of nowhere, will almost increase that angst a little bit. So despite that contract extension, despite the fully guaranteed money on Brent Venables' contract right now, this is a big season for Oklahoma. It really is. The perception of how this program is going to go in the SEC, going to be really interesting to see what happens for the Sooners this year. Certainly not going to be crying any tears if it doesn't go well for them. But hey, thank you as always for joining me here today on Locked On Mizzou. Hope you've enjoyed the program. And if you have, please tell another true son or daughter. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube, the SiriusXM app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can get the show ad-free, on Amazon Music. So until next week, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked on Mizzou.